Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Driven Wyld. Today we are talking about Paraworks is canceled. Here's what happened. So with all of the gig apps that we work with, it is never a good sign when a gig app is canceled. And not too long ago on the 4th, Paraworks, one of the gig apps we work with, got canceled. And some of you may not have even heard of it, but this is no bueno of a sign. So with that said, I want to go over everything being said in this video, how it actually is for gig workers on the platform, some things that have been happening with Paraworks in general, and everything in between. So with that said, let's get started.
What's up with Paraworks?
I think on our end, the way it was set up with a number of partners wasn't working. We made the decision for partners using Paraworks to help them pay the drivers on the system, right? And I think that the decision there was made so that drivers would get paid faster. We noticed a lot of the people we were working with would pay at the end of the week, perhaps pay a week or two later. So on our end, it was just a way for us to be able to provide a better experience. Unfortunately, a couple of partners sort of took advantage of that. We paid the driver on their behalf, and then they just stiffed us with the bill.
So Paraworks as a whole, to us, it was a gig platform. We can accept gigs on the Paraworks platform to where we would see in a queue-esque kind of way, and we were also able to get paid the next day using gig wage through Paraworks. And to me, I thought this was a completely separate app. I made my gig review on Paraworks with the intention and understanding that it was a separate gig app, when in reality, it was not a separate gig app at all. It was a platform where other gig companies can send their orders into, get drivers paid much faster than what they would normally pay, which is usually end of the week or bi-weekly or whatever. So obviously, if everyone has the understanding of all of this, then everyone's going to be paid quickly, on time, and without actually getting a lot of problems in this regard. No, that didn't happen here. Unfortunately, David and Para itself ended up getting stuck with the bill. Imagine losing 25 to 30 to even more money on top of that per order. Yikes.
For Paraworks, how we were paying for it is a small fee that we take for helping arrange it, right? So we make something between $1.50 to $2 per trip that was arranged.
Which is to be expected. You can't expect a business to operate like a nonprofit. You actually gotta make money somehow, right?
And these partners were stiffing us to the tens of thousands of dollars.
I want you to think about that for a second. To him, he was supposed to be getting about $1.50 to $2 per transaction. A single transaction would probably receive about 25, 30, maybe something along those lines, maybe even more depending on the area of the market that you're in. That was what was common for me. Sometimes I'd see 35, 40. Sometimes there'd be others, but not really. And then the money that they're supposed to be receiving from these other companies is in the 5-figure range, losing tens of thousands of dollars per company. And you know that there were a lot of companies. Like, if you ever looked at the orders that you saw themselves, you would see the company name in the individual circles.
Let's be clear to say not all partners.
No. The
Some
problem
of it-
is,
okay,
you know,
yeah.
the problem is, if you make $1.50 per trip and then somebody stiffs you for $50,000, they ruin it for they ruin it for everybody else, basically, right?
Isn't that the freaking truth? Like, literally, it's never a problem until people start taking advantage of it and then ruin it for everybody. It's not the large majority of gig workers that are just doing their job effectively. It's the ones that make the news. It's not the partners with Para that are completely screwing over the company. It's the individual companies that refuse to pay Para that made it hard for everybody else.
It's actually not a bad look. Shame one guy had to ruin it for everybody.
We are working on some initiatives to build a better system, right? So really on our end, it's like, hey, let's shut it down. Let's take a step back. I think
Yes.
on our end, with this context, the decision was, let's take a step back and re-architect how this is set up.
So they're not totally getting rid of Paraworks. It's going to be reimagined, reconstructed. It's going to be completely built in a different way, which then helps me reflect on how hard it would be for a company like DoorDash or Uber to make those changes on the fly, because this is a live system that is active 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yeah, they have more capital to work with, but these guys are in a much different position than any of those companies.
I see Josh's comment, why not get rid of the bad ones? Because here's the thing that I'll say, and I mean, obviously we all have our problems with DoorDash. DoorDash does this, and Uber Eats does this to customers all the time. I read articles all the time about a restaurant that's owed 4 months of income from Uber Eats.
Yeah, I actually had a few stories on here about that exact topic. How many of them were like, oh, they tried to settle with me for half the actual money they owed me? Restaurant in New York City lost $50,000, $14K, $17K, $20K, etc. It gets insane after a while. I actually really need to reorganize my gig economy news articles so that way people get a better idea of what I'm talking about. I could just refer to an entire playlist of restaurants that got screwed over and over again, because that happens relatively often.
They've been trying to poach drivers. Actually, poaching drivers, I very much appreciate when people have been loyal to Paraworks and have gone to continue to get work from us. But actually poaching drivers, it's not great, but it wasn't really that big of a problem.
Keep in mind also, we are independent contractors. If you want to sign up with multiple companies, you absolutely should. Especially if you want to maintain a diverse gig portfolio. There's nothing wrong with that. Just be careful, because some of these companies like to play silly games. And again, if they're willing to stiff a company like Para out of tens of thousands of dollars, they might be willing to stiff you too. So stay on that.
But at the same time, it's very confusing because you have maybe 3 hands in the cookie jar sometimes texting you, and you've now finished the Paraworks and you got King Courier Services, or you got somebody from Cartwheel, or there's people all over texting you and you've now finished the job.
Yep.
And you're like, what, dude, I'm done.
Yep.
And they're like, well, just come to us instead.
Okay, I've actually been reached out to from 2 of the companies, really 1, but 2 of the companies that actually told me about this before they actually shut it down, like the way they're announcing it now. Time to Eat SoFlo was the one that signed me on. They have been good to me so far, it seems. But that also said, they are the ones that gave me a problem in the Para app, and both of them ended up stiffing me $25. But that also said, that's a whole different conversation for a whole different video, which I made in my video review of Paraworks. I will leave that video in the description. Feel free to check it out if you want a more fleshed out version of what it was like before they turned it down from a gig worker's perspective.
And I think what to me is important, though, is like at the end of the day, the goal was to find good work for people, right? Good paying gigs for people to supplement it. So I think what we did is, like, for any of the Paraworks partners who were in good standing, basically who we thought highly of, we basically said, like, hey, you can feel free to reach out to people who've done the work with you in the past and continue to give people work if you'd like.
And that is how I ended up working with Time to Eat SoFlo. They were actually rebranding the Street Lions. I don't know how that's actually going to go. I'm still testing the work I'm doing with them as a whole. So far, they've been good to me. Outside of that one incident with Para and them. And I also did work with NC Deliveries. Again, they're mainly based in North Carolina, as the name implies. But they were good to me overall, too. Tyler was a good guy who worked over there. Either way, all things were copacetic. Other companies would include Food Fetched, Red Wagon Delivers, I think is another one, Bolt Deliveries. If you've ever done a Paraworks and you see those little company logos in the order itself, that is the company that is putting the order through Para. So feel free to reach out to them. I've made a list of a bunch of companies that I'm going to be reaching out to. This is why one of the methods I use to diversify my gig portfolio, so I'm never truly dependent on any singular gig app. And I think that is a vital thing that a lot of people need to do, is to thoroughly diversify their gig portfolio, from catering to food delivery to grocery delivery to package delivery. I've gotten a couple of catering orders received now, but I got a route to do on Veho later today. There's also Curry, which is construction equipment. I know a lot of people are looking into medical local courier. There's a lot of opportunity and a lot of things you could look into. So don't ever feel like you're too locked into one area to work out from another, you know? But no matter which gig you're working on, make sure you have an exit strategy from the gig economy as a whole, because the gig economy is an income bridge to what would be a long-term goal, not the goal. You should never be too dependent on your activity, because one day that gig may not be there. There are so many people that are reporting on Doordash that they're getting deactivated, they're getting locked out, their ID is not being verified properly. And DoorDash is now weaponizing the soft deactivation system on a system that is more glitchier than anything else. Meanwhile, I still say it's part of their methods to blame it on glitches when in reality, they're just trying to cheat the system, you know? Either way, that is the perspective of Paraworks getting shut down, at least temporarily, in order for them to get reimagined. I know that some people still use the mileage tracking that is available on the app, or they link their accounts with DoorDash, UberEats, and Grubhub with that, or Lyft. And there's a lot of integration there. Just keep that all in mind. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. As always, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.